Good morning, gifted crafters. It's crafting time.
Me and my friends are having a great time. It's not face to face, it's all online. We're all in our homes, miles away. Love them like my family, what can I say? My crafting show is on, it's my time for me. Laughter, tips and tricks, this is what I need. We're here to have fun, we're all in the zone. When crafting with friends, you'll never...
Live from the Sunshine State in Miami, Florida, here is the Gifted Crafters Morning Show with Nancy.
Let's have a good time. Ooh, time to get our craft on. Ooh, time to have fun. Ooh, time to feel good.
Good morning, Gifted Crafters, and welcome back to the Gifted Crafters Morning Show. Good morning out there. We've got people that tune in from all over the place, and we just want to say a quick hello. So let me just kind of quickly go through and pick out some people I see here. I see someone from Alabama. Good morning, JBL. Hey, Liz, good morning to you. North Central Texas, we have Becky. We've got Robin from Maryland. Lady Bear from Louisiana. Good morning. And let's see, we've got Marge from Wisconsin. Good morning to you too. I've got my sister there from Virginia. Good morning. We've got Cindy from Michigan. Good morning. And of course, my neighbor from Miami is Rebecca. Good morning to you. And now, if you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Nancy with Gifts HQ, and I host these these daily live sessions, Monday through Friday, and we just talk about all kinds of crafting things, and we have a great time. We do some product demos, maybe do some projects together, and we just have a really nice time talking about sewing, quilting, decoupage, knitting, I mean, any kind of craft you can think of, we will talk about it, and we have a lot of fun. And so go ahead and pop yourself into the chat, because we have a really awesome community out there, and they will welcome you. And if you have any questions, or if you get stuck on anything, we're here to help you out. Alrighty, good morning, Faker McFake from Louisiana. Wow, 76 degrees, awesome. Hey, Roz from Australia, thanks for joining. Good morning. We've got Joyce from Philly. Lake Ridge, Virginia. We've got Leslie. Good morning. San Antonio, Texas. I see Jenny joining us here. From Central Illinois, we've got Barb. Good morning to you. Hey, Sharon. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Alrighty, let's see. I don't know if I probably did miss a couple of people, but the chat kind of moves pretty quickly, so I don't get to pick on everyone, but good morning to you all. Hey, Connie, good morning. And thank you. If you are tuning in for the first time, I really hope you enjoy this channel. Please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, because we have an awesome time, and you really just don't want to miss out on any of those things that we do out there. So for those of you that are watching the replay, drop in a little bit of a comment. If you're gifted crafters, let us know you're watching the replay, and I will go ahead and mention you on the next live, you know, just to give you a little shout out. Let me know about if you do that on the comments, and I'll do that shout out for you tomorrow. And I think that will be a lot of fun. Alrighty, good morning, Joyce. Okay, and Jackie, and hopefully I got a lot of you out there. Okay, so we've been doing a lot of things this week. We started on a brand new pattern yesterday, and we talked about that. And I want to talk about something that's really interesting. Now, this is a beginner's pattern that we're going to be going through, and I've got a lot of things that I want to point out that we talked about yesterday, but one really important point for you today. But before we get all into those things, there's something that we like to do every morning, which is a little toast, right? So go ahead and grab your favorite cup of whatever it is that you have in the morning, and we're going to do a little toast to our crafters and our Sip and Sew Society over here, right? So raise your glasses of whatever it is you have, coffee, tea, soda. There's no judgment here. Raise your glass and let's give our little toast. So let me pour you a cup in case you don't have one. So we'll go ahead and raise the glass to our Sip and Sew Society here, and let's take a little swivel here. Oh, doesn't that feel great? It feels great first thing in the morning. Alrighty, well, good morning from Long Island. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we've got our little drink, and we all need to have our snacks. So we're gonna roll something up really quick. Let's just go ahead and get our snacks, because I know all of you love your snacks, and this is kind of a special kind of snack because you can just eat anything that you want and you won't gain a pound. Isn't that great? So let's go ahead and roll out the food truck I believe we're having this morning. So there it is. We've got our little food truck, and you can have anything you want. Pancakes, you know, we've got bacon and eggs. We've got all kinds of stuff. Bagels, cream cheese, muffins, cookies. Anything that you desire is on that food truck. Go ahead and grab anything you want. It's totally free and calorie free. And of course, we got healthy stuff too, like carrots and kale. So I hope you enjoy all your snacks, and you've got your little snack as well as your drink, and you're in your cozy spot and you're ready to go, because we are too. Let us know, what is your snack? You know, what do you have today when you're snacking away in your craft room? Okay, so today, like I said, we're going to talk about our Charming Christmas Quilt. And this is the pattern. It's a free pattern that you can get from the Fat Quarter shop, and you can download this pattern, and it makes these really adorable Christmas tree quilts right here. Very simple to do, nice beginner friendly project. We went through the pattern yesterday and talked about all of the different things that you would want to pay attention to when you're reading the pattern, as well as the cutting instructions. So make sure that when you download that, you read through that very carefully. And so last night, after going through all the instructions with you, I have gone ahead and I have cut all of my fabrics, and we've got them labeled right here. I've got all my fabrics here, and then I have on the desktop cam, I've got another board full of fabrics that were cut. Now, the difference in this pattern is that the pattern pieces were really big and long, right? So we've got really long pieces here. So it was kind of nice because, you know, you don't have these itty bitty pieces, but I made my little fabric markers, and so I am now using them to kind of label my project and put everything together. So I think that is really neat that I can use that. So I was really excited about doing that, and I love the way it came out, and it's really nice and big, and I'm able to kind of see everything. So worked out pretty cool. Really love that. Okay, So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about half square triangles. And I know we talked yesterday about the rulers and all the different options that you have out there on half square triangles and how you can cut them. But I want to kind of mention a little bit of a mistake that I can see a lot of people making if you don't read the instructions carefully. And I want to point that out because some of you may start this pattern and a lot of you will just kind of glance through and just go ahead and start cutting up your fabric, and then you're going to realize you're going to be making a big mistake. So I want to go through that with you. But before we do that, let's go over to our crafty news. I have two stories I'd like to share with you today. Just a couple announcements in case you're in the area. So let's see, if anyone is near the Philadelphia area, they are having their 32nd annual Pennsylvania National Quilts Extravaganza, and that kicks off today, September the 11th, and runs through Sunday, September the 14th at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center in Oaks, Pennsylvania. And this is the largest quilt festival. It has a lot of inspiration in there. They're going to have quilts from all across the country, special exhibits, fashion shows, competitions. They are also going to have a merchant's mall that's overflowing with fabrics, threads, machines, tools, and all of the goodies. And you can sit in on the workshops, listen to lectures, but they're even going to have people that are experts that will be around to appraise your quilts. So if you're interested in getting your quilt appraised, go ahead and bring it to that extravaganza and have someone appraise it for you. That's pretty amazing. Okay, so tickets are $18 at the door, and you can get more information at quiltfest.com on that one. Okay, second event that I have for you is in Alabama. It's the Peacemakers Quilt Guild in Double Springs, and they're getting ready for their annual quilt show. It's happening this Friday, September the 12th from 9 to 4, right in downtown. It's going to begin at the Little Rock building, where you can grab some refreshments, and you can see some quilts displayed at the Southern Furniture and Winston Baptist Association. Now, some of the items may even be for sale, so if you're thinking about purchasing one, you will have the opportunity to do so. And let's see, the quilt owners who want to share their work are welcome to join in too. So you just bring in your quilt to the Winston Baptist Association on Thursday, September the 11th at 10 a.m. Fill out the tag with your name and your pattern, where it was how it was quilted, whether it was by hand or machine, and your piece will be part of the show. It'll be that simple. So pretty cool on that one. Okay, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, Marge says one of her favorite embroidery design sites has a big sale on Halloween. Yes, the OESD, $1 on the designs. Yes, that is so true. Yes, I did see that. Marge, if you can do me a solid, if you can put that on our Facebook group, that would be awesome, because everyone will really jump on that. That's really an amazing deal there. So if you want to let other crafters know, that's a perfect place to do that, because we really monitor that, and a lot of people will see that and will jump on those designs, because there's some really cool designs out there. Oh, Joyce says that's close and you usually attend. Oh, awesome. That's awesome. Great, Joyce. I hope you enjoy that Philly show. If you take some pictures, if you go down there, and let us know how it is. And we'd like to see some pictures of that if you get to go. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, so let's see. Any other comments out there? Okay, I think we've got everything updated, so we'll put this over to this side. Alrighty, so let's talk about half square triangles here. And I wanted to talk about this because there's something that can happen if you just kind of glance through the instructions. Most people, at least seasoned people, who may not even realize it at the time, can make a mistake just by overlooking something, right? So I want you to look at the very first set of the instructions where it says row assembly. Now, this is the section right here. It's the very first piece that starts to tell you what your step is. And this is right after you finish cutting all of your fabrics, right? So it tells you, of course, draw a diagonal line to the wrong side of fabric G. And if we look at fabric G, which is right here, fabric G is a 5-inch square. Okay, this is a 5-inch square of your background fabric. I'm going to grab this one here. I'm not sure why this one has a fold there on it. Looks like it got squished somewhere. Okay, so we got a 5-inch square. Okay, it's telling you to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of the fabric. So we will turn it around and draw that diagonal line. And you're going to pair that with a 5-inch square from your charm pack. So I'm just simply going to grab one on top here. And of course, it's going to be right sides together. And so I will put those two together. And I'm just going to lay that down here so you guys could see that. Okay. It's telling you draw that diagonal line, corner to corner. You will draw this. Now, depending on what ruler you decide to use, you can totally make a mistake on this if you don't read on. So most people will kind of just see this and say, oh, okay, I'm making a half square triangle. No big whip. Okay, I'll go ahead, make my diagonal line, do it the way I want, and then end up with my 5-inch square. But if you read on, it continues to tell you, right, with the right sides facing, fabric G with fabric A, which is what we just did, which is your charm square with your background fabric, both 5 inches. It's telling you stitch on the drawn line and trim away the 1/4 inch from the seam. So here's hint number 1. Stitch on the drawn line. Okay. Then you have the very last one that says half square triangle unit should measure 5 inches. That is key right there. Why is that so important? 5 inches. Well, we have a square. It's 5 inches. We have a background square. It's 5 inches. And we're going to go ahead and draw that diagonal line and make it a half square triangle. What usually happens when you do that? Let's take a look. On a typical 5-inch, and I'll move over to this side so you guys can see that. So let's see if we can recreate this. Okay. Here's a 5-inch square. Okay. As you can see, we used a ruler, we drew the diagonal line, and then we drew 2 lines. So we had a total of 3 lines, right? The middle that went from point to point, and we had the 2 off to the side that are 1/4 inch away from that. Well, right away, when you think about half square triangles, this is the typical method that everyone seems to use, right? They will draw that line, draw the 3 lines together, and then they're going to sew on the 1/4 inch lines. But if you read the directions really carefully, it is telling you to stitch on the drawn line and trim. The drawn line that they are referring to is the line that is going from corner to corner. So they are telling you to stitch on this line, not cut on the line, okay? Big difference. Why is that such a big difference? Well, if you do it the regular way that a lot of people tend to do, you know, cutting in the middle, because we all do not want to sew on the bias, right? sewing on the bias is probably a big no-no. Some people do it and they are very successful at it, and you know, hats off to them. But it's really difficult to sew on the bias because the bias has a lot of stretch to it. Okay, if you look at your fabrics, when you have that diagonal cut, this bias here can stretch, and really you can get it to go any way you want, right? The bias here, because it has all of that stretch, is going to move around on you a lot. And so it's really difficult to get that sewed line right on that stretch. So that's why a lot of people tend to do things this way, and they will sew and then they will cut, because once you've sewn it, you have locked it down, and so it's not going to move around on you. And so a lot of people will tend to do it this way, but here's the problem with doing it this way and the pattern. Once you do that and you've gone ahead and you've cut it, you're thinking, great, I now have my half square triangle. And so you will open it up, and of course you would go to your iron and you will press it out. And then you're going to go ahead and take your ruler, because I know that we are all measuring after every step, right? And we're going to go ahead and measure this. And so what is going to happen when we do that? Well, let's take a look. If I were to measure this, and won't be perfectly straight, but that's okay. If I were to measure this, you can see right off the bat, I'm starting over here on the number 1 because of the 45-degree angle. But you can see right off the bat, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I don't have 5 inches. I have about 4, well, I'm a little off here on where my ruler's landing, but it's 4.5. Let's see if I can get it straight. Can I get my little thingy straight here? There, close enough. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. And then I'm going to go the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4.5-ish, right? Well, the pattern says that my finished size needs to be 5 inch by 5 inch. So that's where people kind of scratch their heads and they're kind of like, well, what went wrong? I did my half square triangle, but what you didn't realize is because of the method that you chose to make the half square triangle, which is a very popular method for a lot of the patterns, you are eating away with your seam allowance. And so you started off with a 5-inch square, but you have a 1/4 inch seam allowance here and a 1/4 inch seam allowance there. So you just ate up 1/2 inch. So when you go to open it up, you are not going to have 5 inches. So you need to be very careful with the process, with the way you are deciding to make your half square triangles. Although there's probably 1,000,001 ways to do them, you must look at the finished size of the step, because you're starting off with 5 inches and you're ending with 5 inches. So what method does that sound like? That sounds a lot like the stitch and flip method, right? Where we start off with a base shape and we end up with the same base shape. So when you are reading this, always check the sizes, right? I start off with 5 inches, I end up with 5 inches. If that's the case, you're pretty much doing the stitch and flip, even though you're making a half square triangle. So you need to be very careful with that, because you can make that mistake. And then this says for you to make 12 of these. So if you're making 12 of these and you're not paying attention to this, you can make 12 half square triangles in the incorrect size. And that's going to eat up a lot of your stash from your charm pack as well as from your background fabric. So this is why I really stress that it's super important to pay attention to the finished measurements on each step and really look at what size fabric do I have when I start, and what size fabric do I have when I finish? And then kind of look at what method you are using to make sure that you're going to get back to the size of the pattern. Okay, so it's super important. And I know a lot of people will just kind of fly by this and say, oh, I'm making half square triangles. No problem. And so they'll go ahead and do it this way. And this will be an incorrect way. You'll still have a very beautiful half square triangle. You know, that will actually look really fantastic for another project. I'm sure you can make something with it. So if you've gone ahead and done that, I'm sure that, you know, there's something you can make with this, but it's not going to be the correct size for this project. So be very, very careful when you are selecting your method to make the half square triangle, because you can do it incorrectly and end up with the wrong finished size. Barb says, I would use the folded clipper to make the half square triangle for that pattern. Definitely, that's another ruler. Matter of fact, I don't think I brought it with me. I had it last night and I don't have it with me right now. Dang, Nancy, I never put 2 and 2 together. That is my problem. Yes, Cindy, definitely. That would be me. Yes. Yes. And I figured that that's going to be a lot of people. When you first look at the pattern, you know, it's a pretty simple pattern, but you really have to look at the instructions and see what that finished size is, because that's what you have to end up with. And this is the type of pattern where if you look, you know, we are going, when we start assembling this, we're going to start, you know, building on top of this. So if one is off, you know, it won't line up correctly, right? So you want to make sure that you're hitting each mark correctly here. So these are the types of things that you definitely want to pay attention to, because you can easily make this mistake. And that's why I highly recommend that every time you finish a step, if they give you that finished size, it's for a reason. Okay, because again, there's a million ways that you can do something. There's a million rulers out there that you can use. And so everyone has their own way of doing things, and that's great, but you need to make sure that you end up at that finished size. Otherwise, it's going to be off. And so that's what I really wanted to point out to you guys today, because so many people will make that mistake. Marina says, thank you for breaking this down and really explaining the process. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate you guys, you know, here with me in the morning. And so, you know, as you learn and pick up on these things, and I've seen so many different patterns, some pattern writers are better than others in terms of explaining things and putting steps and details inside, but you really have to kind of know the designer, understand their writing style on the pattern designs, and then you can really pick up different things. But when you pick up patterns from new designers that you've never worked with before, you need to be able to be very vigilant and pick up the details and know where you can find things that'll help you to get to the right finished size, right? Because not all patterns are going to give you a finished size. Some do not do that at all. But you do have to kind of read through it and just pick up little pieces. And as you read through the pattern, you know, as you find things that you think are important or may help you, you know, go ahead and write on the pattern, circle them, underline them, highlight them, do whatever you have to do to, you know, make them known, because you will kind of look at it. At least when I look at the pattern first glance, I just kind of glance through it. I don't read it. I just kind of glance. And I'll look to see, is there anything in here that's going to be a problem for me? If there is, I'm going to highlight it, underline it, star it, you know, and that just signals me that when I start reading through the pattern and I see my little markings, I'll know, hey, this is something you got to pay attention to. And so I may read that step and may read it twice or may read it 3 times just to make sure I really understand what it is that they are asking. And then sometimes I'll read it and I'll say, well, you know, it's not that bad. But sometimes it is a step that you really need to pay attention to. Oh, great information, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Okay, so, you know, I really wanted to point that out because that's super important. And although this is a pretty easy pattern because it's half square triangles and sewing together, those are some things that you really need to look out for. So we have the one that's not going to make the cut, but we do have one that did make the cut, right? So let's take a look at that one. So I'm going to move this over to the side. So in this case, I used the Creative Grids ruler, okay? And here we are, corner to corner, right sides facing together. Got my little ruler in place, and I went ahead and I used the side of the ruler to line it up corner to corner, okay? And I just made the one line, just like the instructions said, and that is the line that I will sew on per the instructions. Now, there's something that I did a little bit different that the instructions do not tell you to do. And that is the way you sew on here. The instructions tell you to sew on the line, right? It says stitch on the drawn line and trim away 1/4 inch from the seam. So you have to kind of stop and think about that because it's telling you, and you have a little digital picture here where it's telling you to discard this piece. If you take a closer look at the picture, look at the bottom half of that middle square, okay? And as you can see here, this one right here that does not say the word discard, you've got your half square, but if you look really close, you have a little bit more of that triangle, right? The triangle isn't a solid triangle. It's got this tiny little extra piece going on here. And they don't really tell you this. They'll tell you stitch on the drawn line. But if you think about when you are putting a half square triangle together, if I were to stitch exactly on the line, I am not accounting for my thread. So when I do that stitch, and then I fold the fabric over, I could essentially be a little bit under the 5 inches because the thread itself that's behind it here is taking up some space. So you need to account for the thread. And, you know, I don't know what thread everyone is using. Some of them are a little bit thicker than others. That thread can certainly take up some space, and it will prevent you from getting that perfect 5-inch square. So what you can do, and you can see this on here, I'll try to put it as close as I can here. You can see my drawn line, okay? And then you can see my stitches are just shy of that drawn line. It's almost like I'm right underneath the line. I am not totally on the line. And that's done on purpose because I want to give my thread the wiggle room that it needs in order for me to get that perfect 5-inch square. So when I fold this over this way, because I'm sewing on this side of the line, okay, I can now flip it over, and this side will give me a perfect 5-inch square. But if you notice, if I stay on this side, I sewed on this end. If I flip this side over, I will not be at 5 inches. In fact, you can see right here that the bottom fabric can be seen sticking out. And you don't want that, right? Because you want it to be a perfect 5 inch. So there should be nothing showing on either end. If you fold it, if you go ahead and sew it underneath that line, you need to make sure that you flip it over. And when you flip it over, you can't see the fabric from the bottom. Okay? But you can if you flip it going the other way because of the thread. Remember, everything takes up space, including that itty bitty thread. And so here we are. I'm trying to get this as flat as I can on my hand. Here you go. You can see all that background fabric showing? That thread is taking up space. The thread here is taking up space to prevent it from being a perfect 5 inch because we sewed right here. So we have to flip it over this way. That gives us that little bit of extra wiggle room to then make a 5 inch square. So pay attention when you are sewing these together and make sure that you sew off to the side of the line and that you flip the correct side over. Yes, Lisa, that's how you sew them. That's how you sew them, and that's how they come out perfect. Exactly. And that's not something that is indicated on the pattern, right? Because they can't tell you to do it this way because there's probably like hundreds of other ways of getting it done to that same 5 inch size. So they're not going to list 1,001 ways on how you can do something. These are just techniques that you learn and you pick up along the way. And so you learn how to do that and get the accuracy of each piece. So these are just the little tricks that you kind of learn. And this is just one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I have like tons and tons of books that I read through on sewing, on garment sewing. There's so many different techniques out there that you can learn. And then you apply those techniques to your projects and you learn of all different kinds of ways to use them. So they can't possibly list out every single one that you need to do. But this is just one technique that's pretty simple, and you can follow this and you will get that perfect 5 inch square every time. Yes, trial and error. Exactly. Learn as you go. Exactly, Lisa. That is exactly it. Yeah. Practice, 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 and play with these techniques. You know, really take the time to play around with them. You know, get some scrap fabric and figure out, well, if I sew it on this side, what happens? If I sew it on this side, what happens? And that's how you will learn. Now, how do you mark your fabric? The way I do it is I go ahead after I've sewn on the line and I know that I'm underneath the line here. I'll go ahead and put an X, a check mark, or whatever marking that you want so that I know that this is the side that needs to be trimmed away. So that when I flip this, I'm flipping it over to the right side. And I'm not flipping the wrong side over. You don't want to cut this side off because if you do that, your square will not be at the 5 inches, right? You'll be short that 1/4 inch. And so you want to make sure that you're flipping it onto the right side and cutting this piece off. And then, of course, measuring this, and you'll see that it's the perfect 5 inches. So that's what you'll have to kind of really focus on when you are doing these. Now you're going to make 12 of these half square triangles, and then it's just a matter of going through and assembling each strip. Now each strip will have the finished measurements. So it is super important that once you finish putting all of these pieces together that you go back and you look at the finished size, okay? It's telling you first row should measure, and it's giving you the measurement right here. When you are done with sewing that row, go back and measure it. If it does not meet that measurement, take out your seam ripper and go ahead and start undoing it. Because if one is off, all the other rows will be off as well. So definitely take your time putting that together and checking each step. Okay. Connie says, what is your little pin on your apron above the Gifts HQ pin? Oh, my little flower. Well, this is a little flower. Where's the little clippy thing? Hold on. It's a little flower that I got from Special Olympics when they held their little luau end of the year party. And so it's got a little clip in the back. It's a really cute little flower, and I thought that was adorable. They put clips on the back here that you can kind of clip on. So I got that from the little event that they had. This was the end of year party for the stand-up paddleboarding with Special Olympics, and my son attended, and so they were giving these out, and I thought they were very pretty. And I love that they had the little clip, so, you know, kind of clipped it onto my little apron. And I thought it was really cute. So I kind of just kept it there. Let's see. Cindy said, I forgot, did Nancy buy the fabric kit? I actually am using, there's 2 charm squares that I brought. This is Hometown Holiday is the charm square. This is by Riley Blake. I bought 2 of these charm packs, and then I am using from my stash my own background fabric. And this is a bolt, and I think I put the bolt away. Did I put the bolt away? I guess I did. Oh no, here it is. This is Calico. And this was a bolt of fabric. It's keepsake Calico, and it is called, let's see, Drift Away Metallic. And it's got these really pretty, kind of resembles like a snowy snowflake type of thing. It's got hints of gray and some metallic in it. And I thought that would be a really pretty background for the tree. So I opted to go with this instead of the white on white. And so I wanted to bring a little bit of color to it. So I went ahead and chose this. And this was from my stash. I actually got this from Joann's when they were closing out the store. They had tons and tons of fabrics, and some of them are brand new, you know, never been cut bolts, and they were like on sale for like $10. Like they were just trying to get rid of the fabric. And so it was crazy because people were just snatching them all over the place. And so I picked up quite a number of bolts before they went out. And I was able to kind of build up my stash with some pretty colors on here. Okay, let's see. Did I miss any other questions here? Yeah, if you guys have Etsy shops, put them in the chat. Let people know what your Etsy store names are so we can support each other. That's awesome. Connie says, oh, I see now. How sweet. Very pretty. Awesome. Okay, so I hope I brought some aha moments to some of you guys here, and, you know, some of those things that, you know, really were not explained to me as I was kind of going through my journey, but I kind of picked up some of these tips along the way. And I noticed that, and it's something that, you know, a lot of people just don't talk about. They just magically assumed, you know, there's all these people that are out there that just do perfect half square triangles, perfect projects all the time. And you're always sitting there wondering, how is, you know, this person doing all of these perfect items, and, you know, you're struggling. Well, struggle is real. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that will help us with these struggles and help to make us a better crafter, right? So that's what I'm here for, is to kind of help you guys, and also, you know, share all the tips that I have picked up along the way and has helped me. So I want to break it down into pieces so that everyone understands and is able to kind of do all of these things and get better and better. Because if I get better, you get better. If you get better, I get better, and we all get better. So let's just keep sharing our tips because I think it's great. Okay, so let's see here. We've got about 15 minutes, so I think I can go ahead and grab one of these squares. And what we need to do is cut off that piece. So I'm going to grab one of my rulers, and then we're going to go ahead and sew one of these half square triangles together. Now here is the piece that I have sewn and I have shown you guys. And of course I placed my little X here. So I know this is the piece that I need to cut away. Okay, we want to make sure I cut away. And then I know that when I flip this over, kind of get this going this way, you'll always want to make sure, flip it over, make sure, yep, it's covering everything. This is what I want to keep, and this is what I want to discard. So let's line this up. I'm going to line up my ruler a 1/4 inch away from my seam line. Okay, and you want to make sure that that is corner to corner on here, and then grab your rotary cutter, line that up, and then go ahead, put your pressure with your hands onto the ruler, and then go ahead and do a little pressure downward and make that cut. And if you're not sure, cut it again, as long as you don't move that ruler around. And then just peel away your fabric. Don't move your ruler, don't move the fabric underneath it. Move the fabric that is not under the ruler away to make sure that you got a nice clean cut. And then you can move this, because that way, if it didn't get a clean cut, you have another shot at it and you didn't move anything here. Where if you move your ruler or you're checking things, now you've already moved it, and so you have to kind of realign the whole thing. So pretty important for that. And you're going to have a lot of these scraps. So a lot of scraps here. Crafting on a dime with Shay Shay. I like that ruler size. What size is that? This is an Omni Grid ruler. It is 6 by 12 inch size. It's actually the size that I like to use a lot. I actually use this ruler a lot. It is a nice good size because it's not too big, not too small. So it's a 6 by 12 inch. It's this one is Omni Grid, but they do sell all kinds of other brands out there that have the same size, but it is a nice size ruler here. Okay, so like I said, you're going to have a lot of these that you're going to be cutting up because you're cutting up 12 of these. So I would not discard this. Like, this can totally be some other project that you can make using these scraps. So I will save these scraps and put them in a pile and put them in a pile for a future project. Can be like a little scrappy quilt that you can make with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take, now that we have our square cut up, you can look at it here, and I will put it underneath so that you guys can see it. Right underneath, if I can line it up correctly, you can see we've got 5 inch by 5 inch. And that's exactly what we needed. So you've got your perfect 5 inch square there, which is the finished size that you need. So now let's see if we can make another one here. So we've got one, and we still need to press this, which we'll do. I'll go ahead and do the pressing tonight. I'll cut up the rest of the 12 inch squares. I'm sorry, the 5 inch squares. And then we can kind of continue on the pattern. So here we are. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to grab my little ruler here. Now again, tons of different rulers that you can use. I'm just using this one because it's small and it's easier for me with the camera and everything. Check your background. What mat are you using? As you can see here, it's a little hard to see this because you've got light fabric on a light background. So move it over to a darker background where you can really now see your point right here. right? I've got a dark background on my cutting mat and a light fabric. That contrast is important because it helps you to really see better. So go ahead and line this up corner to corner. Make sure that you are all lined up here. Check the top, check the bottom, check the top again, check the bottom again, and keep checking until they're right on the points. And then hold down that ruler and start in the middle and then just draw your line coming out. Okay, and then I like to just kind of do it twice. Now, of course, if you got that fabric marker, go ahead and use it. I'm just using the pencil because it shows up a lot better on the camera and you can really see it. So now that my line is drawn, I don't want to move my fabrics around. So what I'm going to do is grab some pins. And I'm just going to kind of pinch one end and pin it. And then I'm going to pinch the other end. And I'm going to pin that. Okay. Make sure it's laying nice and flat. That looks good. And of course, I'm only pinning these two sides. And I'm going to go ahead and sew just a hair next to that solid line. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab, we're going to go over to our sew cam. And we've got our sew cam set up here. Now, I did something a little bit different on my sew cams, on my sewing machine. I wanted to kind of test this out. Not particularly for this project, but it's something that I was playing around with. So I did use some double-sided tape, and I did not take the film off of the top, so it's still nice and smooth. It's not sticky or anything. And so I put this on the edge right here, just kind of creating that ledge there. And so when you kind of bump up your fabric, it's going to bump up right up against this. And so I have that little bit of a ledge right here that goes along my diagonal seam tape. And it prevents me from being able to move my fabric around. And so that's just another thing that you can do. This one is nice and thick. I actually got this from the dollar store. Let me see if I have, well, I don't have the package because I did take it out, but this is what it looks like. And you can see that it is nice and thick. See the thickness of that? So it's perfect. You can pick this up at the dollar store, and it's double-sided tape, and it's perfect because of the thickness to allow me to have that little bit of an edge right here, which is really nice. And that's just kind of helps me to keep things nice and straight as I move around. But for this particular one, we are not bumping up the edge against anything. We're actually working on the line. So a little tricky that I have that there. But that's okay. I will just kind of work with that. And so I'm going to go ahead and leave my needle over to the left. I normally bring it over to the center, but I'm going to leave it over to the left just because I have this little ledge here. And that's just going to kind of help me out a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and line this up. And let's see if I can get that right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put my needle down. Now you can see where my needle is. It is a little bit to the left of the line. It is right off of that line. So that's where I want to try to keep it, right along that line right here. And we'll see if I can do that. I slow my machine down. I don't allow it to go full speed, because you want to really take your time to make sure that you get this right. And so here we are, just trying to stay nice and still here. That little thread can be a little distracting, but that's okay. Just keeping it nice and straight, not a race. And make sure that you go all the way through. Okay, and then go ahead and lift up your needle and cut those threads. And let's just see what we did here. This is that little thread that I forgot to pull my thread to the back, so it was a little distracting, but it's okay. And you can see here, it doesn't take very much right? You don't have to be 100% off the line. You're just kind of shy to that, just giving it that little tiny bit of extra space on there. And so your stitch is right off of that. And so now let's come over to the side here and we're going to see how we did. So I'm going to remove my pins and then I'm going to look to see if I got to my 5-inch mark. And so I'm going to flip this over here. And you got to kind of play with it. When you press it, it becomes a little bit better, but just play with it here. Make sure it's flat. Look at one side and then look at the other. Cindy says, Nancy, does your machine give you a number for your movement of the needle? If so, what is it? So right now on my machine, on this particular machine, this is a Brother HC 1850. My position of the needle is over to the left, and that is 0, 0. I normally have it on 0, 1, which is where it moves my needle to the center. But right now I have it set at 0, 0, and that is what I sewed off of, which will get me to that position. Crafting on a dime with Shay Shay. So a little to the side of the line. Yes, just barely. Like you can barely see that you just are touching that line, just off to the side. You don't want to be exactly on the line. You want to be just a little bit to the left or to the right, either way, of that line, right? And then when you flip that over, your fabric will have that little bit of extra wiggle room to maintain that base shape. Whereas if you go the other way, see if I can get it this way. So this is my 5-inch square, right? So you can see here, I don't have any material peeking out from behind here. If I flip this, and I don't know if you guys can see it, let me see if I can get closer here. I'm going to try to use this ruler to balance me out here. So you can see here, no fabric, right? If I flip this over, I can flip it over. There we go. I'm going to see fabric right here. See how there's fabric sticking out over here and over here? That's because the thread is taking up that space. And so, yes, it's scant. And I hate to use that term, it's scant 1/4 inch. What is scant 1/4 inch? Everyone, there's tons and tons of controversies on that scant 1/4 inch. And there's things that, you know, you may not really totally understand with that. This is exactly what scant 1/4 inch is. It's just that hair off of that 1/4 inch. And that's what you're trying to do with these squares in order to get them perfect, right? So make sure that when you are sewing these, that you pay attention to that, and then you flip it over to make sure you get the correct 5-inch square, and then cut off the correct piece, because that's what's going to help you to be the most successful. Okay, Phil says, is the drawn pencil line going to show through on the front of the line like fabrics? On this particular one, it's not, because it's a gray fabric, so mine is not. I really just use the pencil so that you guys could see it, because that way it makes it nice and dark and you guys could see it on the camera. But I would recommend using their fabric markers. That way, you know, when you iron it, they disappear. That's really what you want to use. I'm only using this because if I use that, it makes it harder for you guys to see it on the camera. So that's why I just use a pencil. Okay, awesome. All right, well, guys, we are running out of time. Let's go over and get our inspirational quote of the day in. Let's see what we have here. Okay, today's inspirational quote of the day is, sewing early for the holidays gives peace, joy, and plenty of time to make it meaningful. And that's definitely what you want to do, is go ahead and start your projects early so you can actually enjoy the process, learn these tips, and really make these nice and fun. So those are the tips I wanted to share with you guys today. I want to thank you guys for all of your support. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with your sewing on my sewing journey here, and it's just so much fun to do this with you guys. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow, and we're changing things up on our program. So next week things are going to shake up a little bit different on our show. So if you have any suggestions or things you'd like to see, don't forget to go ahead and send those to us in the little link down below. So thank you guys all for tuning in today. I hope you have a fantastic time, and I hope you'll be crafting with you soon. Bye, everyone.
So long for now, so long. Glad you stayed a while. Hope you liked my crafting style. Hope I left you with a smile. By now, keep your mind and space clutter-free. Hope your day is bright as can be. So long, my friends, till we craft once again. Bye now, stay crafting. See you tomorrow. So long, my friends, till we craft once again.